Hello teachers. If you'd like to try this experiment yourself in the classroom, here are the materials that you'll want. This does involve a little bit of prep work, but it's not difficult at all. First of all, you'll need copies of the acid and base lab sheet for your students. Then you'll need to get a purple cabbage. And you'll have to cut that in half or quarters and boil it in some water to extract the pigment that is inside. You'll get a liquid that looks like purple grape juice, but it doesn't smell like purple grape juice. It smells like a really bad gym bag that's been left out for a while. You'll need to let that cool before you start the experiment with your students, but that's the main prep work you'll do, is boiling that cabbage. Then you'll need to gather some chemicals. Now, I've chosen some from my kitchen, some from my lab. Some of these are fairly safe chemicals, but some do involve some dangers. So you may want to have some caution as you use these with your students. You have to use your best judgment on that. I've chosen some white vinegar, some baking soda, some hydrogen peroxide, a lemon-lime drink, some lemon juice. You can use a real lemon if you want. This is some liquid dish soap. This is hydrochloric acid, extremely strong. You can use ammonia or window cleaner, either one. Keep in mind, ammonia is also strong and the fumes are not helpful. This is some drain cleaner or caustic soda, commonly called lye, also a fairly dangerous chemical. This is aspirin. You'll grind that up into a powder and put some water in it. These are antacid tablets. You'll do the same thing, grind them up into a powder and add some water. And this is some oven cleaner. And you'll put that into the containers around the classroom for your students, or you can demonstrate this yourself if you're concerned about safety. Now, at each station, you'll put a little bit of the chemical in a cup, and you'll put in a dropper so students can take a drop of this and place it into their test solution, which is the cabbage juice. If you don't have droppers, you can simply use straws and have the students put it in the liquid, cap the end with their finger, and add a drop. A straw like that, or even these small ones, will work to add a few drops of liquid. Now here's what I used for my test trays. If you don't have test trays, here's a very inexpensive way to get some. I simply went to Dollar Tree and purchased these ice cube trays. They came in a 2-pack, so they're only 50 cents each. And I'll give one to each group of students, so I only need like one for every 3 or 4 students. And I numbered them using a permanent marker. There were 14 trays in there, so I numbered them 1 through 14, and then I made cards to identify the chemical. So the students will put some cabbage juice in here and then add a drop or 2 of hydrochloric acid to cell number 12. So each one corresponds to the chemical that goes with it. Number 8 is window cleaner. So that's how I made test trays. Cabbage juice will go in here before students start the labs. Then they will go around to each station and add a drop or 2 of that chemical to see what color the cabbage juice turns. Along with the ice cube trays that we use for a test solution, I also purchased these at the Dollar Tree. These came 2 for $1, and it made it very easy to add just a little bit of the cabbage juice to each of the cells in the ice cube tray. Now, let's watch the video and see what happens. We use what's called a pH scale to measure the acidity or alkalinity of certain chemicals. pH stands for power of hydrogen, and it measures the concentration of what are called hydrogen ions in acids and in their opposites, which are called bases. It measures the acidity or the alkalinity. Water is neutral. It's a 7 on a pH scale. Acids tend to be towards the lower numbers, and your bases are towards the higher numbers. For example, lemon juice has citric acid or ascorbic acid in it. Vinegar is acetic acid, and here I have a very strong acid, hydrochloric acid. It would score very low on this end of the acid scale. Many people just assume that all acids are harmful, but that's not necessarily true. For example, we eat lemons. We eat vinegar in our food. We have oranges, which contain acid, and this doesn't hurt us. On the other hand, if you had lemon juice on your skin, it wouldn't harm your skin at all. But if you've ever gotten lemon juice in a cut or in your eye, you know that it can harm those more sensitive tissues. The same is true for bases on the other end of the pH scale. Baking soda is in many foods. Ammonia, on the other hand, is much more harmful. If you got it on your skin, it might eventually start to burn your skin. And then we have drain cleaner over here, a very strong base. So these are different types of acids and bases that we measure using the pH scale. In our first acids and bases lab, we're going to use these Hydrochloric paper strips to test the pH level of different chemicals. We'll start with lemon juice. We dip the hydrogen strip in there and we notice it immediately changes color, and then we compare it to the scale. It stands in between about a 1 and a 3. It looks like closer to 3 though, so I would call this pH level about a 3. Here's toothpaste. Now we notice that we get a yellower color, approximately a 7, maybe a little bit past a 7 towards an 8. Here's baking soda. Immediately we get this green color, which is about a 9. Here's vinegar. And again we get that red color, kind of like we did with lemon juice. This one looks to be about a 3. It's not quite as red as the vinegar was. For our fifth chemical, we've ground up some antacid tablets that you would use to treat heartburn. We get this yellowish color. It looks to be about a 7, maybe a 6. Here we have some vitamin C tablets, and now we're getting that reddish color again. Looks to be about a 3. I've ground up some aspirin in this solution of water, and we get a somewhat reddish color. I'm going to guess that that's maybe a 4 or a 5. Here's a solution of window cleaner, and I get a greenish color, almost blue. It looks to be about a 9, or maybe even a 10, probably around a 9. This chemical is ammonia. Look at that deep blue color. It's an 11. This chemical is isopropyl alcohol, or rubbing alcohol. And it looks to be right about in the middle, maybe a 6 or a 7. Fairly neutral. Here's some hydrochloric acid. Look at that deep red color that we get, about a 1. pH level of 1. And here's some drain cleaner. Look how blue that is. That looks like it's at least a pH of 11, maybe even more, like a 12. Previously, we used these hydrogen paper strips to determine the acidity and alkalinity of different chemicals, to measure their pH levels. Today, we'll use some cabbage juice. I simply boiled a purple cabbage and extracted this pigmented juice. It will change colors based on whether it's mixed with acids or bases. I've arranged 3 acids over here. These range from a weaker acid to a stronger acid, and 4 bases over here, again moving from the milder or weaker acid bases to the stronger ones. We'll begin here with vinegar, and we'll notice the change in the color that we get. We get this magenta pinkish color. Then we move from vinegar to lemon juice, and from lemon juice to hydrochloric acid. And it looks like perhaps I may even need to switch those two. This one looks a little redder than this, although they're very close. But you'll notice the hydrochloric acid is definitely the reddest of the 3, and it is the strongest acid. Over here on this side, I start with baking soda, and I get a green color. I move on to some window cleaner, which is already blue, and I get a turquoise color. Ammonia gives me green, and lastly, drain cleaner, more of a yellowish green color. So cabbage juice can test the acidity and alkalinity of these acids and bases, and the color change will tell us how strong that acid or that base is.